Welcome to Men Pursuing More, the podcast for men seeking purpose, growth, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. In this July, we're stepping into a powerful series that honors the courageous men who paid a price in battle, yet refuse to be defined by their wounds. This month, Men Pursuing More proudly features Wounded Combat Veterans Month, a special tribute to warriors who face the horrors of combat and come home with scars, but not without strength. Their bodies may carry the weight of war, but their spirit unshaken. Wounded in combat, unshaken in purpose. These are the men redefining strength, not just for themselves, but for all of us. You'll hear stories of grit, faith, brotherhood, and the relentless pursuit of purpose on the other side of pain. From the battlefields to civilian life, these men continue to fight, to lead, to grow, and to live with impact. Their stories will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you of the strength that lies in never giving up. If you're ready to walk alongside some of the toughest men alive, men who have every reason to quit but choose to rise, then you're in the right place. Subscribe now and join us for this powerful July series. This is Men Pursuing More, and this month, it's about honor. It's about healing. It's about heroes. All right, welcome back to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin, and today we have Len Anderson joining us. Len, before we dive into your story, a few sports questions for you. First, favorite all-time sports team?
It's going to have to be Clemson Tigers.
All right. Shout out to
college sports.
Now, is Clemson in the ACC or SEC?
The ACC.
Oh, that's right. I shouldn't say SEC.
The ACC.
That's right, ACC.
Our rivals are SEC, though. Yeah.
All right. Shout out to Clemson. And then favorite all-time athlete?
Ooh, man, that's a tough one. Ozzie Smith comes to mind immediately.
Ozzie
I'm
Smith.
a ball player, and he was a shortstop. And I've met him. So,
you've actually met him too, huh?
Yeah, I've actually met him once. So, great dude. Not as big. He's definitely not as big as you think he'd be. But, he was a real deal.
Yeah, he was a real deal. All right. Shout out to Ozzie. That's right. I like that one. I've heard a lot of MJs and Larry Bird and then some other football players, but I like Ozzie. No, I think that's a great choice.
I could have went with so many. There's so many out there. You ask me tomorrow, and it may be a different guy for some other guy comes to mind, per se. I don't really worship any one guy, but when it came to like autographs, because I was put in situations where I could get autographs from people. I've met a lot of people. I've done the MLB All-Star Game, but I had to get Ozzie. I don't know why. I had to have Ozzie's autograph.
Maybe at the end we need to get Ozzie Smith on on this podcast. Say, Ozzie Smith, we just have to talk about you for a few minutes.
Yeah,
I love it.
He's a good dude.
All right, let's get into your story. So tell us about your experience growing up in South Carolina and the reason for attending. I know you attended like 4 different high schools, I believe. And so just share that with us.
I did. So I had an interesting childhood, I guess you could say. I've lived most of up until high school, I lived with my mom. My parents were separated at an early age. And I followed them around. They were a teacher. My stepdad was a football coach. So he moved around the state a few times, changing jobs. So we would change schools every 2 or 3 years, go to a different school. And then finally, I just got tired of it. My dad was in one location. And God love my mom, but we would butt heads from time to time. And so finally, I was like, I'm going to go live with Pops. And that may have been a little bit of a mistake looking back on it, because that was the beginning of my rebellious streak. And that would be the main reason I went to 4 different high schools, is I just wasn't a very good kid. Once I got the freedom and a little bit of it, a little taste of it, if it didn't have anything to do with sports, if I wasn't playing a sport or I had certain games I had to be at, I really wasn't too concerned with school. So I was lucky to graduate.
And then once you graduated, what was your reason for enlisting in the military? Because I believe your dad was in the military at one time, or
he was, he was.
Early days,
my whole family, honestly, was military guys. And I didn't know, I was very naive on the military. I had been around and heard my family members talk about stuff, but never really batted an eye too much at it. And to be honest with you, the whole reason I joined was my dad came to me one day worried. And he was basically like, look, man, the road you're headed down is you're going to wind up dead or in jail. And he was like, so I'm not saying you need to do this, but I'm saying you need to do this. And yeah, it was pretty much, I walked right into the recruiter's office from there and didn't really know what I wanted to do, kind of figured it out as I went and joined up. And it was the best decision ever. It gave me a lot of structure and a lot of the things that I wasn't getting at home. I don't want to say at home necessarily, but I wasn't implementing in my life that I needed in order to succeed or to do the right things. And so that taught me a lot of the values, the core values and things that I live by now, and gave me a lot of the direction that I needed. And it gave me, honestly, I was a young kid with a whole lot of testosterone and I couldn't sit still and really hard to hold my attention on anything. And the military kind of scratched that itch. There was always something different going down. I was getting to play with guns and doing all this different. So it allowed me to really kind of focus that energy and channel it in a better direction.
Now, share with the listeners, I believe your position as you were in the Air Force, right?
I was.
Yeah, the Air Force on like security forces and also I believe you're a canine trainer or you're on the canine training unit.
Yeah, so I joined as security forces, which that entails a broad spectrum of things. Basically, I started my first 5 years doing nuclear security, basically doing convoys for nuclear weapons. And I got a lot of cool training doing that. So I wasn't really doing the law enforcement aspect of our job. I was doing more of the security, which came with good. I didn't have a lot of experience in the law enforcement, but I got a lot of crazy, really good training that a lot of your average guys weren't getting from a lot of different agencies and doing a lot of different things, because obviously we're talking about nuclear weapons. They take that pretty serious. So
yeah, that would be pretty serious.
So we're getting a lot of cool training, and we didn't know it at the time. We were just having fun, living our lives as young airmen, but paid off later on. I was getting all this training. I had some things. My sister had passed away at a young age from a drunk driver. And it changed my mental attitude towards, I'm stagnant here. I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. I'm getting really good training, but I'm not getting to use it. What's the point of having all this training if I'm not actually going to get to use it? Got sent to Katrina to respond to that for a little while. And so that was a quick ramp up, if you will. Oh, we're going to get to do something cool. We're going to get to use our training now. And it didn't really. We wound up doing more security. I was like, hey, I went into the office when it was time to retrain, and I said, what's the fastest way to get to combat without having to completely cross-train into a different career field? What was laterally available within our career field that was going to get me there? And a canine unit. She said, their ops tempo is crazy right now because of the war and everything that's going on. Do you know anything about it? And I was like, nah, I don't know anything about it. I don't even know. We got dogs. What are we doing? And because I hadn't seen the law enforcement side of it, which is mainly what they do when they're stateside. And so, yeah, I signed up right there and walked into the schoolhouse probably 6 months later. And I was the only one in the whole schoolhouse that when the instructors got there, they were like, hey, so who has experience with canine? Because usually what happens is people go and do work at the kennels and prove that they want to actually be part of canine. I was there more for I want to get to combat. This is my tool to get to combat. So everybody in the class who has experience working with dogs, everybody raised their hand. And I'm sitting in the back corner just like, I don't even know what kind of dog we use. And actually, it was a good thing because they were able to mold me from a completely unbiased. I didn't have any of these guys in my ear telling me, this is how you're really going to do it. This is how you're going to do it when you get out of the school. They really got to work me green. And it paid off. I was one of the best at what I did.
And what's kind of involved in that? If you're familiar with dogs or not, what's the process or kind of the training and the type of dog? Maybe listeners are wondering about what type of dog you use.
We use all kinds of different dogs,
Yeah.
given the scenario. It started off as it was a special unit where we only had about 1,800 in the DoD. That's all branches involved. As the war went on, some of these special operations guys that were, let me back up. It was when it all started, it was we'll say 1,800 plus throughout all branches. And what they did was basically, it was an evolving type situation. Every dog's different. The way you train them is different. And they basically taught you in the schoolhouse from the beginning is they basically taught you how to walk a dog and give them commands and pick up on little things the dogs give you and be able to articulate that to your instructor. If you could do that, then you can basically pass. From there is when it really starts and you start getting more realistic training. You go to a new base, you'll get paired up with a dog. From there, it's a process of getting trust and rapport with that animal and building a relationship in order to get to the training and be able to work stressful environments and do a lot of the big things we're asking these guys to do in very stressful situations. And with that comes the fact that at the beginning, we were working with all different units of the military. It could be Secret Service one day, running with those guys, doing missions with them. And then you could be downrange running with a SEAL team that picked you up because they needed a dog they didn't really need you, they need the dog. And what that created was, and I could see this happening, guys that were maybe a little less trained or a little less ready for that situation, they would probably wind up falling behind. And so a lot of these tier one units started creating their own dog programs and figuring out what they needed in the combat role in order to get their type of job done. You're talking about two different ROEs when it comes to things. It's ever evolving, is basically what I was getting at. So you continue this training throughout all the bases. Everywhere is different. You go to a new base, you get a new dog. The dogs are pretty much their stock numbers to the base, if you will. They're basically equipment, quote unquote. And from there, it's just a constant test of your skills. You're getting paired up with a dog. If you got a deployment coming up, you're getting ready for deployment. If you don't, you may be working more law enforcement on the base, depending on the ops tempo of whatever base you're at. You could be doing a lot of different things, is what I'm getting at. But you're constantly training. So you're constantly testing your skills and you're constantly trying to evolve the dog to where it's ready for anything at any given time. So you got to be ready to do law enforcement work, which is drug interdiction, or it could be aggression work in order to apprehend someone, all the way to hard hits in a combat situation, going kinetic with a bunch of guys around you that you may have never really worked with at any given time. And so you got to be ready to go to both ends of the spectrum at any given time.
And then
I know that's a lot.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, that's a lot because are the
It
dogs?
is. It's hard to break it all down, but
No, I appreciate that. I think it's kind of getting a grasp on all that. But so you were probably before you get deployed, because I was going to get to deployment. I know you were deployed 2 different times to Afghanistan. Were there dogs there at the base already that you were trained with, or you were probably training the dogs before your deployment to Afghanistan?
both. It just depends on the base and the timing of when you got there. You may walk onto a base that has a kennel full of young dogs, and maybe only 1 or 2 have been overseas and actually experienced the combat and the stress and being shot at, rounds going by them, and this and that. You may go to a kennel where none of them have done it. You may go to a kennel where they're old. They got an old group of dogs, and 6 out of the 8 have been in combat multiple times. Believe it or not, the dog that I got hurt with, she was known in theater before really I came walking with her. And a couple of the handlers cinched their dogs up because I guess she was a dog fighter previously, and I didn't know that. But I didn't let my dogs do that. I wasn't going to put up with it. My dogs were pretty well mannered. I could pretty much walk anywhere, relaxed leash, except for one. And the other guys had known her because they had been deployed with her before with a different guy, and was expecting her to act crazy and do all that. She just went up walking on by, and they were like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm not putting up with that stuff, man. Like different handler, different styles. So it really all just depends on what base you went to, what their ops tempo was, how much it affected some of the dogs, because we started getting some of the PTSD effects on the dogs later on as it got deeper into the war. So it just depended. It was a constant rotation cycle, just like troops. Similar situation. It's just they have a pretty much a 5-year, 6-year window where they're doing their best work, and then they're more on the downside on their way out.
Then when you were in Afghanistan the second time, you were with the Army, right? You were on a patrol with the Army
I was with 3rd ID at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, just randomly where I got sent out there in order to take over kennels. Actually, I was going to be in charge of 5 or 6 guys, and I didn't like the idea of not having the lay of the land in my head of what these guys are going to be seeing, dealing with, and doing all that. And so I had about 3 weeks gap there where the guy that was in charge was going to be showing me how to do things as he was on his way out. And so I just took the opportunity to run missions with the guys. That way I could figure out what's needed, what's not needed, best teams to go with what teams. If you got a dog that's loud and they're wanting to hit a house quiet, obviously I'm not going to want to send that dog. And so I was just getting a lay of the land, if you will, of everything that's going on, and wound up with 3rd ID out in a combat outpost about an hour from where we were. And about the 3rd, 4th day, I got struck with an IED.
You were made for more clarity, more confidence, more impact. At Maupin Coaching, I help high school and college athletes master the mental game and guide men into purpose-driven leadership. Grab the sports book, rock that merch coming soon, and step into more at maupincoaching.com. So share with the listeners because this month is going to be kind of the month for combat veterans in July. Share with the listeners. I know you had a number of surgeries. I think we had talked a few weeks ago about 50 plus surgeries, and just the process and the rehab, just from everything being wounded. It was, I think, your arm, right?
Yeah, multiple. I lost left and right.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, like I said, I was struck with an IED. It was controlled death, so somebody was sitting there watching and said it's and it just really it hit me pretty much from the knees up. So I wasn't quite on top of it. I was about 2 or 3 feet back from it. My dog, it went around it, stuck her nose to the base of a tree for a second. I froze just to let her do her thing, and they set it off too early. So because of that, I'm here. But at the same time, because of that and the way my weapon and my hands and everything was set up, that took pretty much the brunt of it, was my thighs and my hands. And so immediately I had to get tourniquets on both hips. The hands were kind of the least of my worries at that point in time. They were more worried about bleeding out. We got picked up by a random medic that was flying in the area, thank God, and took me to the main base. And from there, it was more about stabilization. So I was getting moved from one base to another base in order to get me to a big hospital base, but I kept destabilizing in between. So I had a number of surgeries that were needed en route. And then where I came up with the number 50, it could be a little bit more, but I don't really know. I just hit the doctor one day. And because I had such bad damage, they had to treat them as grafts, skin grafts, like I was burnt. And in order for that to happen, they had to put wound vacs on everything. So I had 17 wound vacs throughout my whole body. Hands were wrapped up. And this is what I woke up with. And then I started the grafting procedures. And so once I got to a point where I was learning how to walk again, getting reinvigorated, I hit the doctor one day with like, so randomly, can you tell me how many surgeries I've had? And he's like, I don't know the exact number, but I know you're over 50. You might be over 60. And I was like, holy crap. But that could be given I'm having 3 surgeries at one time. I don't really know. But this is what I was told. I do know that I spent a lot of time going into surgeries the first month. It seemed every other day I was going in for something. And yeah, when it gets to skin grafts, it's just, those are brutal. And I didn't even know how many fingers I'd had left on both hands. I still had both hands at the time, but I had a broken arm and a broken eye socket. And so I kept asking them, how many fingers do I have? Somebody's got to have an answer for me. Nobody had an answer because nobody was there en route when they wrapped them up. And so after a month, I had to sit in there with a month for my hands wrapped up. And they came in one day and were like, hey, today's the day. We're going to figure out what you got. And it was a bittersweet. It was one of those, oh, look, there's my hand. Oh, God, there's my hand. What the hell? So I had 2 fingers on this hand and one, what I had left here. And this was just so mangled that I eventually told them to cut it off. And I'm a big sports gym guy. I like to constantly be moving. I was going to get a better quality of life without it. And I just did a lot of my own research, a lot of my own looking into prosthetics, and just finally got to the point where I was like, yeah, let's cut this off. And so from there, that's when I wound up going to the CFI from SAMC, which is the amputee area, which is where I wound up running into August and everybody else.
August, and you ran into Mitch, right? Or you knew Mitch before?
No, Mitch, I saw him. I didn't meet him until I started competing with the Warrior Games.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then I think Will Reynolds, right? Was he another?
I know him, but I don't remember where I met him.
Okay.
I know August, Sarah, Laura, and Steve.
Steve, yeah. Yep.
I met all of those pretty much before we went to start competing in the Warrior Games. And then once we started doing all the, the mini camps and stuff together, that's when we really, oh, yeah, you're the guy that was downstairs talking to, oh, okay, cool.
What's the process for listeners about like the prosthetic arm? What is a rehab with that? What is the whole process along with the prosthetic arm?
It's a lot in comparison to a below the knee or something like that, because the knee serves one purpose, whereas when you're doing things with a prosthetic arm, especially the myoelectrics, the robot hands and whatnot, everything's operated by your muscles. And so there's a lot of different innuendos, a lot of different things you have to learn how to control within your body to learn how to control the arms, if that's the type of arms you want. I use a lot more passive arms, so it's more of just stick it on and go. But the process was interesting. It's really just about coming up with different tests that you may encounter every day of your life in order to get you confident enough to put you back into the real world. And the thing with me, though, I was so headstrong and I was such a busy bee. I can't sit still. I was already at home doing all these things that I would wind up coming into therapy for. And they're like, oh, today we're going to do cooking with this. And I was like, yeah, I already do that. They're like, what? I was like, I got kids. I got to figure it out. Yeah. And so finally I would come in and they had challenges. What are we going to do to you today that you can't think of, that you haven't done at home? And the worst one they got me with was I had to use my robot arm, and I had to, so you hang a shower curtain with a robot arm, and when you extend and it makes your muscles do different things. So that's what they would do, little stuff like that in order to screw with me, because they know I'm not doing that stuff at home. And so it really turned into a little, competition of what can we get in with today. But normally it's a lot more of learning how to control your body, control the muscles, and they have little games and stuff that you can play in order to learn how to control the arm better. And then it's really just a game of waiting on the swelling to go down. They told me that they wouldn't give me a sports arm until I could wear the robot arm, basically the myoelectric, for 8 hours without taking it off. And I was like, are you serious? And they were like, yeah, if you can wear it, once you can do that, we'll make you a sports arm. So I come back in 2 days later and I was like, man, I ain't took this thing off in a day. And they just shake their head. They're like, oh, okay, man, we'll make you a sports arm. Thank you. And I've never used that thing since, to be honest with you.
So along with that, I think before we get to the next question, do you have to go in so often like to have your arm checked?
Yeah.
Is that like on a weekly basis or every few weeks or just when you need to, or?
When you need to, basically. If I drop a bunch of weight that could change the fit and everything. So you go in for little tune-ups. You'll go in for little tune-ups with what you need fitted better, or like the attachments that you put into the prosthetic. That's mostly what you go in for. Is you'll go in and you'll have an arm built that'll last you a year or two, or depending on the abuse with like legs, it may be a little different. And then I'll go in for more attachments. Hey, I need this for the gym, or I need this for softball, or I need this for golf. So it just depends.
And that kind of leads into, you talk about the sports arm, because it leads into participating in the Warrior Games and Invictus Games. So if you share with the listeners just the training involved in that, and a little bit about the Warrior Games, and then also the Invictus Games, I know, are worldwide.
Yeah, that was an experience, man. Nothing I really ever thought I would do. Especially, it's just not something, those aren't typically the sports I would set out to get involved in. I'll say that. But I needed to recover, and I needed something that was going to keep me active, and I needed to be around like-minded people that were going to push each other. And so they offered it up one day randomly. Hey, you ever thought about doing this? And no, maybe you want to come to one of our camps or whatnot and see if it's something you're into. Okay. And so I did it on a whim, and I got there and they offered different sports: swimming, sitting volleyball, cycling, weightlifting, all kinds of different stuff. And so you just chose what you wanted to get into. And I chose swimming and shooting. And I think I chose a couple of others. I want to say I chose cycling or something like that, which is where I ran into Mitch. It wasn't for me. I found out like day one. I was like, no, I'm not a cyclist. But I had swam before high school, so I had a little experience swimming, which gave me a really big leg up on the competition later on. And that's where I ran into August and Sarah and Laura and everybody was during the swimming part. And we just all formed a bond, and we're all like-minded and would joke with each other, real family type vibe, even though we came from all different walks of life. And we just clicked from there. And from there, the practices just got more intense. We'd push each other. We held each other a little bit more accountable. And we were all living in Texas at the time. So like me and August were gym buddies. We lifted every day together for a couple of years, and we would swim every other day and get ready for the upcoming games. And what it did was it allowed us to go there and kick ass, which is what we did as a group. And when you put all of us together, I think we had accounted for 25% of the Air Force's medals, maybe. So we put it on them when it came to Warrior Games. And then that just carried into Invictus. Really, they gave an opportunity. I didn't go to the first one. This was the second one, and they sold it as a step up in competition, which it definitely was.
And they take it from all the armed forces, right? Yeah, all together.
So you go from wearing your Air Force blue and white and doing all that to now we're all USA. Everybody's red, white, and blue. And we're competing against, I think it was 18 different countries. And I swam with them and earned a gold and a bronze medal with that. And August, I don't know his medal situation, but I know he competed in swimming and sitting volleyball and I think something else. And this was before he had the leg amputated. I could only imagine if he had the leg amputated, he would have dominated. But yeah, we just formed a bond that still have to this day. And we've done some crazy stuff together. And I just hiked the Grand Canyon with 3 of them 6-7 months ago.
I think that was with Steve, right? Was Steve one of them?
Yeah, they called me last minute.
Yeah, he shared about that.
That was a rough. Yeah. They looked at me like I was crazy too, because I was a dropout. I filled in for a dropout. And when I got there, everybody trains for it, does this and that, showing my pack. And they were like, so who knew they were coming? And I was like, I found out a week ago. And the guides were like, hold up, you don't do this, you don't hike, you don't have training for this? I'm like, nah. I said, well, my people are doing it. So if they can do it, I can do it.
Love it. Share with the listeners, what's your current position now, or what are you doing now? I know you're being a dad.
I'm retired, basically. The way it's set up, because I draw Social Security, puts me in tough situation going back to work
Yeah.
when it comes to certain financial obligations, and it has to be worth it. You know what I mean? You'd really have to, which is really weird because I hate it, man. I cannot stand being retired. I don't know what to do with myself every day. I'm still 100 miles an hour, ready to go, but my body reminds me pretty quick sometimes, like, you could bite off more than you could chew if you're not careful. It's one of those things. You remember how it is when you had a job and you're like, man, one day somebody's just going to pay me to do nothing all day. I'm going to love it. I'm going to have such a good life. And then it's not that much fun.
Yeah. Everybody talks about it, but when it actually...
It's not that much fun, man. I wish I could go back, but I keep busy. I've learned woodworking. So I do a lot of woodworking. I'm trying to get a shop built at our new place now so I can have a sizable shop. I'm not going to kill myself in. And sports really drives me and keeps me active. So that's mainly what I do is I help with that. A lot of my sports is with an organization called For the Fallen, which is a nonprofit. We do a lot of work for veterans there in the sports field. So that really takes up a lot of the time, especially when it comes to having 4 kids around the house.
You got a busy household.
Yeah,
so that's a full-time job right there.
They have 4 kids and they keep bringing in animals. And the oldest wants to build a chicken coop right now. And I'm like, dude, no, not building it. Every day he comes in with some new idea. And I'm like, where are we going to put this stuff? So it's funny.
Now you're part of the pineapple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I think Sarah, August, and Laura,
August has talked about it. Mitch has talked. And I've heard the story, so it's going to be one of the episodes about the.
The one in Hawaii. That was a wild one. That was a very unexpected.
Yep.
And then the tattoo was even more unexpected because I remember I was with Gideon, and Sarah and August just showed up at a random. I think we were at a bar in Vegas, and they were like, "Check it out." Boom. And they showed me, and I was like, we didn't know if you were going to like it or if you were going to be like, you guys are stupid. And I was like, tell me where you got that right now, and I want to go. And so we all wound up in this person's house getting a tattoo in the middle of Vegas in the middle of the night. So, yeah, it's been a fun ride.
Hey, as we're kind of getting close to wrapping this up, what is some best advice that's been given you that's really stuck with you? I know you've given some, I know on the podcast, but any you can think of maybe in the last 10, 15 years that's really stuck with you?
I mean, when it comes to work, which is what I loved what I did. I don't have any regrets. The only thing I regret I do is not doing it bigger, not pushing my body harder. Probably the best one I got, other than you lead from the front, is competition breeds excellence. When it comes to work and stuff like that. I've carried it over even to the injury, to the point where I was competing with other injured guys in my head, mind you. I wasn't like talking crap to these injured guys. Look at me, I'm doing it better than you. But just in my head, that stuck with me. And I've carried it on to not an arrogant style of living, but a more of a push yourself to be the best at all times.
That kind of pursuit of excellence. Yeah. You hear that so much. Yeah. Sometimes we don't hear it enough.
We don't.
Be honest. I think we need to hear it more often. And
lead from the front has always been the biggest piece of advice that I've had, that I've always stuck with. I've never looked up to leaders that I knew wouldn't do the things they're asking us to do. And so I've always prided myself in, if I'm asking someone to do it, that's because they know I'm going to do it with them, or I've done it before.
You've done it.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, that I was starting to get into that leadership, mentorship side of my career, because I'd spent almost 14 years in. And honestly, that's one thing that I missed that I think I would have enjoyed, is molding other guys to be better than what they think they even are.
That's that's a wrap of, I was going to ask you about some final thoughts, and you already shared a few. So any other final thoughts you want to leave with men, or just maybe veterans? Because this is going to be, July is going to be Combat Veteran Month on this podcast.
Just the biggest thing I could tell you, and this is coming from a guy, who had a lot of stuff ripped away from him unexpectedly, but understanding what he signed up for. So never having regret about it. Just anybody dealing with some hard things in their life, just put one foot in front of the other. That's all you got to do. You ain't got to do nothing hard. Just put one foot in front of the other. It may suck, but you put one foot in front of the other, eventually it all adds up.
All right, there it is, Len. Thank you so much for your willingness to share your story. And I know listeners can find you. There's a website you have. I remember, I think you sent it to me on, or maybe Mitch sent it to me. What is about Len Anderson? Something you're involved in? Or
For the Fallen.
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit that I'm one of the board members on.
Okay.
We do a lot of direct support to veterans that are trying to get into athletic things, whatever they may need, whether it's wheelchairs or certain devices to help them compete.
Perfect.
You can look us up at forthefallen.org, and then all my information will be down there as well.
All right, that's a wrap with Len Anderson. I want to thank you for being part of Men Pursuing More podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to Men Pursuing More podcast. Don't forget to follow us at mopandcoaching.com.